The weather was all cloudy at first, and now the sun is fully out. I can see from the scenery and the mountains and stuff, it will be really good once I get a chance to actually go out there and when the weather's actually more predictable. Because again, it said the weather forecast was supposed to be really cloudy, high chance of rain. Maybe I should start finding some meteorologist buddies or something like that just to predict the weather a little bit more accurate. Okay, I think since there were so many requests for this, I think I always try talking something about the drones and the cameras today a little later. I was actually going to hold it off because I wanted to do something a little bit more, I guess, thorough, but I guess I'll work with what I have. But first, let's talk about some interesting stuff today that I read. Did you guys know apparently today on the Earth there's officially 7.5 billion people around the world? That's a lot of people. Although one of the interesting statistics is just how many people are around certain areas of the world. Like it says here, this is the top 7 places with people. Like China, 1.3 billion. India, 1.3 billion. United States, 325 million. Makes me wonder, where's Canada? Are we just like this little speck there? Even though we have this huge land, we like make up a very tiny portion of the whole world. Kind of ironic too, where in terms of a population in Canada, if we have this little people with how much land we have, why are we so afraid of drones if you think about it? Whereas these other countries with such population density per land, they're not as afraid of the technology. Doesn't make sense in many ways if you think about it. I was just reading this other interesting news from DJI. They were releasing this drone with a camera with Hasselblad. Is that how you pronounce it? They're apparently a really huge camera company in terms of like a niche, making really high quality cameras. And they said they're releasing this 100 megapixel drone camera. Sounds kind of overboard, huh? I like how some people here they use words like this overpowered drone. I was always taught though, in terms of cameras and stuff, isn't it more about things like the sensor, for example? Like you could have a camera with a really huge amount of megapixels, but if it has like a really bad sensor, like for the lights and all that, then it doesn't really amount to anything spectacular, if that makes sense. Although I'm assuming like with this company, it probably is crazy. Probably has a crazy cost to it too. It isn't exactly something like a consumer drone, like a person like me would use anyways. Kind of cool though. On that note of drones and photography, that leads to the main topic to talk about, which a lot of you wanted me to talk about, which is about drones and the issue of privacy. Because apparently that is one of the biggest issues on why things like this interim law came out in Canada, to my knowledge, where the general public are really paranoid. Like for example, the drones will fly near your home and take all these photos of you and videos of you, which invades your privacy. And for the most part, I even mentioned I feel it's really overblown to the part where I don't think people understand like what type of cameras are on these consumer drones normally. Not to say there aren't dumb drone flyers, for example, that fly them irresponsibly or probably to use it like in really bad ways like that. That's not the point. The point is these are really the low percentage of people, and I think with anything in life, with any type of tools or resources, you're gonna find dumb people who do dumb things. But in general, in terms of using drone cameras to spy on people, like in the general public, using recreational or consumer drones that you can buy off the shelf, it's really far-fetched, and so I'll try to explain it with the resources that I have. Now, unfortunately, I don't get sponsored by companies. I get free drones or free camera lenses to really show you how it's like, so instead I'll use what resources there are available for me to try and explain it, so hopefully open up some people's minds who are anti-drone, so to speak. Now, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of people's concerns with the drones are when they're flying over your head. Oh my goodness, they can see me like doing everything with such close details. Kind of like in something like this, for example. You're so close to the subject and you'll fear like you can't hear this, you don't know where it is, so oh my god, it's an invasion of privacy. But in reality, I mean, let's talk about like camera lenses in general. Like, I often said things like, hey, does this thing have a telephoto lens? Like, as a normal consumer, you might wonder, well, what's a telephoto lens? I mean, they look like something like this, for example. If you look at this at first, you're like, oh my goodness, what is that? Now, these lenses are often how professional photographers or companies get those really close shots of subjects that are really far away. Like, for example, a lot of the animal documentaries, that's how they actually capture footages. And when they're on one side of the mountain and they can capture an animal on the other side, that's how they do it, like with these telephoto lenses. Or some people use them for sporting events, whatever. But the bottom line is you can get like really clear shots being really far away. I mean, if you think about it here, absolutely no sound, camera lens, the person could be way far away from you, you have no idea, no notice. So is that a reason, for example, to say ban all camera lenses? I don't think so, correct? Or another argument now would be, okay, well, obviously like those guys, they have like such a big setup. Like there's obviously the public is gonna see that if someone tries to zoom into them because it's so big. Well, not exactly. I mean, look at some of these consumer DSLR cameras, for example. They actually have pretty good zoom in capabilities. Again, people can basically buy them off the shelf. Is that a reason for you to go crazy, for example, and say, oh my god, I gotta ban all telephoto lens like this because they could be using it like in devious ways? But again, like that comes down more to the person, not the technology in many ways. Now think of this from a regular consumer point of view, just for these telephoto camera lenses as an example. How do you think the world would react if we said all of a sudden all these types of lenses are banned because they pose a danger to the public, their privacy? Or at the same time, imagine if you watch like a news report, like I don't know what the proper term for it is, like when they do like a report that's 30 to 60 minutes dedicated to just one subject, where they did nothing but talk about the dangers of telephoto lens, if that makes sense, and how there's so many people using them to spy on people as a reason to ban this stuff. Does that make sense to you? To me, I would be like, are you kidding me? Holy cow, what was going on there? Any wildlife experts out there? Now a key thing to keep in mind too, there's a difference between an optical zoom and a digital zoom. So for those who don't understand, an optical zoom, imagine it kind of like you are literally putting the camera in front of the person's face. You basically get a really clear picture quality. Whereas with a digital zoom, it can't zoom in as close, so it's basically what you're doing is you're taking a picture and you're zooming in that picture, if that makes sense. Actually, there's some of these videos that show a great example of it. Basically, when they reach the distance of the optical zoom, so to speak, the picture quality is really clear before, but after, when it goes into a digital zoom, it gets really blurry. So that's something to keep in mind as I go into the next thing about drones and the cameras. Now, when it comes to drones, to my understanding, a lot of the general public has a fear that the camera picture quality that people get are like with these telephoto lenses. Like my drone could be, say, I don't know, 50 meters away and you'll get these crystal clear close-up shots of people, which again, it's oh my god, it's an invasion of my privacy. Now, just to use my own personal example here, like with the drone I have, it's like a consumer drone. That's not the case. Because remember how we talked about things like optical and digital zoom? A lot of these consumer cameras actually, they have really bad optical zoom, if that's what you want to like say. For the most part, when it comes to these consumer drones, these cameras people use to take photos or videos, they're meant more for aerial footages. For example, to take pictures of the scenery, the outside distance, to get shots that you can't normally get. For example, how else would I have gotten a top-down view of a waterfall or of a mountain, for example? I mean, good luck doing that with a regular camera, unless you have the luxury of being in a helicopter or a plane, for example, to film it from above. And as well, many times when there is someone walking by in the picture, you're basically like this little speck. It means nothing. So you're actually not the target of the photography, if that makes sense. You just happen to be in the shot, which I'm inclined to say for a lot of people. Some people would say, oh, get out of my shot so I can get the best picture. Just like what they do with like smartphones or any other camera. I mean, for me to get a really good picture of people, like when we're trying to get like selfies, for example, like with examples like these, I'm actually about 2 meters away or so, like from people to get this pan shot. So again, I have to be really close, whereas someone with like say a telephoto lens, they can be in a huge distance. Like drones in general, they don't have really the tools rather to actually do that, because they're not designed to be that way for these consumer drones. I mean, you could argue, for example, maybe if someone spent $100,000 or something like that on their drones to specifically zoom in these cases, then yeah, maybe. But for the most part, these consumer drones, I mean, most people, you have nothing to be afraid of if that's what you're afraid of, that people are zooming in, getting these crystal clear shots of you. I mean, that's just not the case. Because it's a little ironic in many ways when I think about it, because what's one of the number one concerns of drones right now, or the complaint of it on why they should be banned? The noise. So if I'm that close taking a, you know, like this group selfie and all that, what do you think they hear when the drone's near them? You bet. All these sounds. So can you imagine someone trying to use this to quote spy on someone? Because I know that's the narrative that people are throwing out right now, to ban all recreational drone flyers because of privacy and all that. But how good is that to actually spy with people when you hear all that noise and you have to actually be that close to even get a picture? If there is someone using DSLRs, for example, with telephoto lens, which to my opinion, there's never been a public ban on them in any way, can you imagine what you'll hear in that case when someone's using that camera? Exactly, you don't hear anything. So what's more dangerous, like in terms of your privacy concerns? Someone flying the drone or someone using cameras like those? That makes me think of the point where, for the most part, I've mentioned, people like me, we use drones like these for photography reasons, videography for fun. Just like how anybody else would use them for their smartphone cameras or their regular DSLR cameras. They don't use it specifically, for example, to do devious things. If that's the only thing on your mind, then in my opinion, hopefully things like this will open up your mind a little bit. Because in general, it should hold true, like in terms of a law, in my opinion. I mean, someone can feel free to throw me your side of the argument. But if the worry is about spying, privacy, aren't there laws already like that condemn stuff like that? Like, I'm just gonna randomly find something and post it up here. Like, basically, if someone was doing something bad with a camera in general, it doesn't matter if it's a smartphone, a DSLR camera, there's already a law for that. So why do you need to punish like a drone flyer specifically? Why? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, in my opinion, that just comes down to the lack of public awareness of the technology. So again, hopefully videos like these will help people like that to open up their minds. Because like for me anyways, I think that's pretty stupid if someone was saying, or the whole country is saying in general, people should ban DSLR just because there are people who could do that. I mean, again, focus on those individuals, not just like on the tech. Another thing I think people should think about is how, like, with the laws like these, they basically ban people from flying, like, you know, drones for fun, or even quadcopters, whatever you want to call them, model airplanes. Like even small, tiny ones, 250 grams, they're so paranoid where it even bans them, and they don't even have necessarily a high quality camera or one at all. So is that fair to basically stop people from like this enjoying their hobby as well? What are you? Okay, that was a funny example actually. That little dog just ran up and tried to nibble like my leg a little bit. But again, in terms of laws and all that, what's more dangerous, a dog or a drone? Is it fair for me to say because that dog was going crazy or whatever, that I should ban all dogs from the park? Ultimately, hopefully that helps to open up people's mind. Like I said, I would have loved to do like a side-by-side comparison of like a camera and a drone getting this exact same shot just to prove the point more. But again, I'll just work with what I have with the resources for now. All right, see you guys later.